And good morning and welcome to the Extension Connection. This is the Morton County Extension Office. This is Vanessa Hoynes, Family Consumer Science Extension Agent. And with me I also have Liz Larson.
Yeah, I'm Parent Resource Coordinator.
And we also have Carla Mickle.
I'm 4-H Youth Development in Morton County.
And so why don't we go around and share what everybody's going to chat about. Carla, what are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about something exciting that's coming up. We just kind of got word that we're going to participate this year as a county, and Spring Fever Garden Forms. We'll be visiting about those as they start Monday, March 20th. All-important date coming up here, March 1st. It's like a holiday in 4-H world. It is time to register for 4-H camp. So I know we talk about it a lot, and I don't want to go through the whole camp schedule, but we'll just kind of touch base on 4-H camp. And then another event coming up, Farming for the Bottom Line, which happens next week on the 28th. We'll visit a little bit about that.
Great. Liz, what are you going to talk about?
All right. Well, I'm going to talk, since we are back in winter wonderland, or whatever we want to call this weather today. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the materials we have around responding to distressed people, or maybe people that are in your life distressed, stressed, having any kind of thoughts about harming themselves, whatever else. And then also talking about kids in stress and how we recognize that, how we help kids deal with stress and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and this is Vanessa, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, we talked a couple weeks ago about February being Heart Month, and so we're going to continue that discussion a little bit about some things and some tips you can do to keep your heart healthy and remembering Heart Health Month. And we're also going to be talking about some ways to get involved with our Field to Fork webinars. That actually, our first one will be today. So we'll talk about what the topics are and the ones coming up. And then we'll also talk about canned foods and how canned foods can help us save time and money, and some good tips when it comes to that. So who would like to get started?
I will dive right in. Okay, so here coming up, I'm going to kind of go out of order here, but we've been visiting with some folks in our community, and they are interested in having the Spring Fever Garden Forms again this year. And last year, we offered these on 4 different nights. They're live presentations from NDSU, and they'll be delivered here at different locations across the state. Free samples of bulbs, seeds, miscellaneous gardening supplies will be provided. The form is actually free. And so the first one is going to be Monday, March 20th, and they're going to be discussing lawns and gardens. And Alan Zook, turf specialist, will be visiting about getting your lawn off to a strong start. Of course, last week we had a teaser. Today it's snowing.
Yeah, we all saw the lawns again.
Yeah, so very exciting, and even some green grass peeking through already too. So that's wonderful. But we'll discuss fertilizing, aerating, repairing vole damage, managing weeds, and preventing disease. Soils for your garden and containers. David Franzen, soil specialist, will visit about different options for soil. Prairie Meadow Gardens. Barb, a research specialist. I'm not even going to try her last name. I'm very sorry. But she'll find out what constitutes a meadow garden and see the progression of one created at NDSU Horticulture Gardens. And then bonus flower bulbs and seeds that night. On Monday, March 27th, flowering shrubs is the topic, discovering what shrubs are best for various situations and home landscapes. If you want to plant a birch tree, Greg Morganson, tree specialist, will talk about birch trees and where to plant and how to keep them healthy. And then diagnosing spruce disorders, Joe Zalesnik, extension forester, will talk about treating problems caused by insects, disease, and the environment. And I've seen Joe in action with trees, and he does a phenomenal job.
Oh, yeah. Joe lives and breathes trees.
Yeah, he's wonderful to visit with. You want anything. Yeah.
And I think any of those evergreen plants that people have in their lawns and those kinds of things, everybody's always wanting to keep them healthy and keep them going. Many times after the winter, they're getting sunburned and they have issues. So, good time to catch that.
Yeah.
Well, and this year, a lot of you just see so many more broken branches, and we've had some heavy snows. So
right.
And that ice storm right around Christmas time didn't help us either. So
and we probably have more of that heavy snow coming yet this spring.
Yep. So some tender loving care. We'll be talking about that quite a bit here. So Monday, April 3rd is the 3rd session. We're going to talk about growing Juneberries, and Kathy Wiederholt, fruit project manager, will be talking Juneberry pie. Get the best crop by selecting good plants and controlling pests. Grafting Apples. Todd Weinman, Extension Agent from Cass County, will be talking about apples. Growing raspberries, Harleen Hatterman-Valenti, high-value crops. She'll be discussing cultivators, trellising, pruning, and general management practices. Monday, April 10th is the last day, and that's all about landscaping. Building raised flower beds. Steve Sagasar, Extension Agent from Grand Forks, will be visiting about raised beds, making gardening easier for everyone. They'll also show you how to build a sturdy, attractive planter, so that'll be really fun. Adventures in Shade Gardens, Esther McGinnis, Extension Horticulturist. Make your garden glow in the shade. Layer different textures, forms, colors, height to create a sanctuary from the summer heat. And then Smart Gardening for Butterflies. And Jan Knodel, Extension Entomologist, will talk about attracting butterflies. And I've had some really good conversations with her about that. And she has got some wonderful ideas about building a beautiful monarch butterfly sanctuary, really. Very cool. So, and then the bonus that night is butterfly feeders. So we will get some registration set up. It is requested, and so and the sessions are all free. And so we'll get registration set up here locally for folks in our Morton County, Burleigh County areas. And you can join us, and we'll announce the location here as soon as we get that confirmed. We're working on that as well. But something really fun to look forward to. Spring.
Yeah, it's a good thing to get on your calendar right now.
Well, it's something for everyone. Whatever, if you're doing shrubs or gardening or whatever you want.
And even though they say registration is requested, actually, they usually have something free to give out each night. And so if you haven't registered, your chances of getting something will be a lot less.
Right. Yes.
Because, of course, if you didn't register ahead of time, you would be the one who wouldn't go home with it.
Right.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Registration is helpful for everyone.
Yes.
But just, I guess, watch our website, our Facebook page, and, we'll keep you updated. As soon as we get information out on location and confirm everything, we will let folks know. So I'm just going to touch base really quick here on camp registration, because we talk about camp a lot, and I know that, but it's so important for our youth. But camp registration actually goes live next week, March 1st. We're very excited to host camp again at North Dakota 4-H Camp in Washburn. We're going to celebrate 50 years of North Dakota 4-H camping. And again, a great thing about 4-H camp is you do not have to be a 4-H member to attend. So I had some questions through E-Extension here this past week on horse camp. Someone was asking me about horse camp, and they said, well, usually you have 2. I see you only have 1. Yep, we have 1, and when it's full, it's full. So if you are considering a camp, I would highly consider registering sooner than later, just because they will fill up. We get pretty busy during the camping season, and we like to show off our new buildings and just the grounds in general, because there's a lot of great educational opportunities at North Dakota 4-H Camp in between Fort Mandan and Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center near Washburn. So with that, Jim is cueing us for a break, and when we come back, I'm just going to visit a little bit about farming for the bottom line, and then we will hand it over to Vanessa and Liz.
Right now, 34.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
And welcome back to the Extension Connection. This is Carla Mickle, 4-H Youth Development Extension Agent for Morton County, and I have just a couple more things here to visit about. First, I forgot to give kudos to the kids who participated last weekend in the Hippology contest. Morton County Hippology, which is the study of equine science, won the Burleigh County contest in the senior division, so hats off to all of them. And I believe the juniors placed 6th overall. They're getting pretty good at that 6th place. But there was 20-some teams. So
that's
they did
really good then.
Yeah, so they did really good. So I'm very proud of them, and they have been having a phenomenal season. So this weekend, all of the judges from Morton County will be attending the 52nd West River Judging Contest up in Beulah. I'm excited to go to that event just because it's fun to see some friends I haven't seen here for a while from back that way. And so the Hippology team, Livestock Judging team, Crops, Mandan FFA, New Salem FFA, almost every FFA chapter in the area will be there. So I'm very, very excited. So One other thing to visit with everyone about, and we've been having quite a few calls here this morning already to register, is Farming for the Bottom Line. And that's going to take place over at the at Bismarck State College in the Energy, gonna mess this up.
Oh yeah, the Energy
National
Center.
Energy Center for Excellence. Yep, it's going to take place on February 28th, and just a little bit about it. And I'm going to read this just because I don't want to miss any important information. But after focusing successfully in crop production for the past 2 years, the 2017 edition of Farming and Ranching for the Bottom Line will put more attention on beef cattle topics. The unique event, scheduled for February 28th at Bismarck State College, is a joint effort of the Area 4 Soil Conservation Districts, USDA's ARS, NRCS, and NDSU's Extension Service and Agricultural Experiment Station, and BSC. Researchers and specialists from those agencies will discuss calving date decision-making and alternate livestock systems, water quality management, cross fencing and aftermath and cover crop grazing, the weather outlook, perennials in an annual cropping system. A panel of producer innovators will then talk about their real-world experiences in implementing the management strategies the speakers have discussed. New this year will be a keynote presentation taking advantage of these challenging times from Taylor Brown of the Northern Ag Network in Billings, Montana. Brown is a nationally recognized broadcaster and agricultural advocate. There is no charge to attend, and lunch will be served. So, because there's lunch that's going to be served, we're asking if you could please pre-register. Registration does begin at 9:30 that morning, so you can check in, get your name tag, all your information on February 28th in the BSC National Energy Center for Excellence. The program will start promptly at 10. Producers are asked to register online at www.tinyurl.com/2017 farming-ranching. If you are unable to register online, please call the Morton County Extension Office at 701-667-3340, and we would be happy to take your registration over the phone. So again, we're asking that you register just for lunch planning purposes and supplies for the event, and it is going to take place next week on Tuesday the 28th. That is the 28th, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So Tuesday the 28th at the BSC National Energy Center for Excellence over at the campus of BSC here in Bismarck. And so, again, if you want to pre-register on via phone, call 701-667-3340. And we had quite a few phone calls this morning already. So
yep, I heard a lot of them coming in.
Very
which
exciting.
Is great.
Last year, they had over 100 folks, and we're nearing that number now. And I'm hoping here that more folks will register and come down for a wonderful day of a lot of really valuable information. So, okay. And with that, that is all I have for news. For 4-H side and agriculture side of
spring
Extension.
is coming. That's
what
it sounds like
exciting.
you're saying, Carla.
Yeah. So
better on day like today.
Yes, all that moisture. Gotta love that.
I know. As I was walking through all that muck, it's kind of like knowing that it's all going to soak right in.
Yep.
That's going to be so good for everybody. Well, kind of on the same vein, we go from farming for the bottom line to field to fork. And so if we have folks who aren't necessarily the big farmers, but are maybe producing some vegetables or other things that they're wanting to take to market also, we're doing some webinars on Wednesdays, and they actually kick off today. They happen from 2 to 3 p.m. And if you're interested in attending, you can sure attend and watch this webinar at home on your own computer in your bunny slippers if you want to.
Yeah. Real flexible.
Flexible
field to fork.
There you go. Or if you're not comfortable with that and you want to put your boots on, you can with slippers. You can come and join me at the Morton County Courthouse. We'll be doing kind of a hosting site there that if you're wanting to come and join a group of others, take part in those webinars, you're welcome to do that. Today's topic is going to be about food safety when we're talking about from field to fork, and so things that you need to be aware of as you're progressing in that. March 1st, the topic will be the recommended vegetable varieties for North Dakota, which I think is going to be a hot one.
Yes. Yeah, people are looking at their seed catalogs and remembering what went well last year or not.
Yeah, and going to bed with visions of
Sugar plums, but not sugar plums.
Not sugar plums. Let's see, sugar beets? No, that wouldn't be right either. Yeah, you know what I mean. Visions of all those seeds coming, or bulbs, or all those fun things that might be coming. And then March 8th is going to be, the topic will be what regulations apply when preparing food for the public. And so those will be things that, again, you can sure watch it at home, or you can join us at the courthouse. And if you would like to join us, please call us at 667-3340. The first one starts today at 2 o'clock, and you are still welcome to give us a call and join us. We'd love to have you. So last time we were here, 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that, of course, February is Heart Health Month. And so when we think about heart health, there are probably 2 topics or 3 topics that come to mind. Usually we want to talk about reducing sodium, and that's what I touched on last time. Today I want to talk a little bit about answering some questions about fats, because I think those are confusing, probably also because many of the nutrition research and experts keep changing their minds, and so that makes it difficult to kind of keep on top of that. And so when you're looking at labels, some of the things you want to look for, saturated fats are something that you want to keep a lid on, and how much you are having in your diet. They really recommend to consume about less than 10% of your calories from saturated fat. The other one you want to look for is trans fats. And this one can be very deceiving, because when we look at labels, many times trans fats, the amount that's in something is very small. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking like 1 gram, 2 grams. It seems like, well, when I look at this label, like, this should be okay. It's not going to be too harmful. Unfortunately, they recommend that you have no more than 2 grams a day.
Ooh.
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah.
And then the plot even thickens further, because with the regulations with labeling, if a food item and how it's labeled based on its serving size, if it doesn't contain a full gram, or if it doesn't contain even like a half a gram, it can say 0.
Oh, it's like they round down.
They round down, so then
you have these hidden trans fats.
Exactly.
In our foods.
Exactly. And so, and then, of course, is there anything that we can think of that we've ever eaten more than the serving size?
Just today, are we talking, or every day?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think a lot of times you end up eating more than what the serving size is, or if it's a food that you eat often. One that comes to mind, coffee creamers, the powdered coffee creamers, many times have the trans fats in them, but of course the label may or may not say that it has any. And then of course the serving size is like a teaspoon. Well, okay,
Not many people do that.
Yeah, right.
And we all know a cup of coffee isn't what we're really drinking.
Exactly.
Those thermoses aren't a cup worth.
Right, because you have 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it might be. And so be wary of those foods that may have trans fats. And some things you can be on the lookout for. Many times processed foods are going to be, especially things that are fried or that type of thing, are going to have more trans fats. A part of that, you can look for words like partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated. And if those words are in the ingredient list, there are trans fats there. You can count on it. I can't tell you how many, but they are there. And so if you see something that says 0 trans fats and it has those words, you need to be wary. Also, deep fried foods and commercially baked foods. So when you think about, those are some of those things that don't come with a label. If you stop by the local donut shop and pick something up, they don't have the label on them, but chances are they do include trans fats just because of how they are made. And then when we're looking at cholesterol, the good and bad cholesterol, and that goes back to those good and bad healthier fats and less healthy fats. So wanting to have the healthier fats, the polyunsaturated, the monounsaturated fats, help to boost the HDLs, the good cholesterol. Saturated fats tends to add to the LDLs, the less healthy cholesterol, or the bad cholesterol. And really the big difference with them is that the bad cholesterol basically cakes on into your arteries and clogs them up. The good cholesterol, the HDL, actually is a cleaner system. It comes through and cleans out your arteries. Yeah.
For the H.
Yeah, helpful for the H, exactly. And so definitely something you want to be on top of and be aware of. We are going to need to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our visit about heart health, and I'll share a couple more things before I turn it over to Liz.
Right now, 34.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
And we're back with the Extension Connection. And this is the Morton County Extension Office. Vanessa Hoynes, Family Consumer Science Agent. And during the break, we were just talking a little bit about, how fats are so confusing. And we have, you're kind of told to look at labels. And if it's...
And you're like, what am I looking for? And it says poly something, mono. And these are bad words, right? They're long?
They're long,
No.
yeah. Well, and I think that the piece of that you want to be paying most attention to is the unsaturated part of it. Whether it's mono or poly in front of that. And the unsaturated, basically what we're talking about is that it is something that, and it's talking about the hydrogens. The hydrogens on that particular molecule are not saturated, meaning that there are open bonds. And that's what makes those oils, those fats, actually liquid. And so that's why when we talk about them being... the liquid fats being something that is healthier is because it has those open bonds versus a saturated fat. That's why it's solid. And that's also why when we talked about the trans fats coming in with the hydrogenated, that's basically what they're doing. They're taking something that was a healthier fat and they're adding those hydrogens, that hydrogenation process, to complete that molecule so that it doesn't have any more open bonds.
Oh,
and that's what makes it solid.
The scientific reasoning.
Yeah, and so then it comes down to that also brings us to that age-old question, and I can't even tell you how many hundreds of times I've gotten somebody will call the office and will say, okay, which one should I have? Should I have margarine or should I have butter? Which one's better? Which one's better for us? And so thinking about that saturated and unsaturated, when you think about it, a stick margarine, that is... Probably they've taken like a liquid fat like corn oil, sunflower oil, some of those, and they've hydrogenated. So now you have trans fats, and now it's solid at room temperature. And so that's one of the cues, is to look for something that isn't solid at room temperature. But that stick margarine has kind of like the double whammy because it has in that process, it also has increases that bad cholesterol in addition to the trans fats. And so you really want to look for butter, for example. That's a saturated fat, so that may raise your bad cholesterol, but it doesn't affect your good cholesterol. So that's a good thing.
So it's not as great of an option, but not the worst.
Well, and a lot of times I will tell folks is that really, when it comes right down to it, if you are using so much butter or margarine spread that this is a health risk for you, the first thing you need to do is cut back on how much you use. But looking for butter, many people think is probably one of the better options because we're talking about more natural. Like we said, it doesn't affect your HDLs, but it does increase your LDLs perhaps. The tub margarines are going to be better than the stick margarine just because it's less saturated. Again, not as solid at room temperature. So yeah, lots and lots of things, and I think
you can talk about fats all day.
You could, but I don't want to because you have some great things to talk about too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Liz.
All right, sounds good. Well, like I had mentioned when we were first starting out, I thought we'd talk a little bit today about kind of how do you help someone in your life that's maybe in distress of some kind. We know that a reality of living in North Dakota, we have pretty high rates of suicide, and also just a lot of seasonal depression, and there's just a lot of things going on. The economy we're having a tough stretch here as a state, so a lot of those things affect all of us in our communities, and we just want to be aware of how everyone's doing, whether it's your family members, older members or younger, maybe a coworker or something like that. So we have this great resource in the office, so you can always stop by and pick one up or find it online. it's called Responding to Distressed People, but kind of breaks it into a flow chart. So it's kind of easy to say, okay, because it's not black and white, right? It's not just they're distressed or they're not. There's all these other elements that you need to look at.
And, many times we get kind of a feeling as we're visiting with somebody, but we go away thinking, I don't know what to tell them to do.
Exactly, yep. And maybe they're just having a bad day. Is it a bad day or a bad week kind of thing? So I thought we'd start at least at the beginning of the flow chart, and it's really just kind of recognizing some of those signs. And like you had said, being okay with recognizing them. Don't ignore it. Your gut's usually right. If something's going on, follow up with that person. So some signs, and you might have known these already, but nervousness, agitation, more irritable than normal. If they're missing work or class or what their daily schedule's kind of off, any kind of excessive crying or sleeping a lot, changes in their routine behavior or even just the way they're relating with other people in their lives, any kind of deterioration of hygiene. So maybe they're not taking care of themselves like they normally do. Any kind of bursts of anger, aggression, kind of more abrasive than normal. They're aggravated like that. Also fearfulness, or if they're withdrawing, they're not coming out to events that maybe they love going to basketball and you haven't seen them as much lately at the games. And then, of course, also frequent use of any kind of substance, alcohol, drugs, even smoking. If someone might be a smoker but is starting to heavily smoke, or any kind of gambling or other addictive behavior. So those are kind of those signs of distress that you want to keep a lookout. And then follow up with a question, and really express your concern. I think people are uncomfortable saying, hey, you look like you're having a bad day. But express that concern, like, say something like, I've noticed you haven't come to coffee for a long time. I'm concerned about you, kind of what's going on, or those types of things.
And I think that's really good too, because I don't think the individual may not recognize it either.
Exactly.
And so that kind of brings it to the forefront. It kind of gives them something to think about and to respond to. And
you think you're kind of managing okay, and maybe you feel down, or maybe not even recognize it, like you said. And for someone outside your, in your circle to say, hey, you look like you're acting different than normal. So at that point, you'd kind of want to ask some questions and see what they say in response. And then ask yourself, are you worried about their safety? Are these warning signs something that you're going to feel uneasy walking away because, they might have that prolonged period of distress, or if they've said any actual threats of suicide or self-harm, we want to take those things very seriously. Even general statements, like I just can't do this anymore. I want it all to I want it all to end, kind of a thing. Any kind of significant confusion or isolation. When we're distressed and overwhelmed, our brains are affected. So you can't really maybe function at your normal level of understanding. Any kind of behavior that's bizarre, alarming, obviously dangerous things. Clear statements about hurting themselves or others, and then any of those, signs that we said as far as feeling depressed or looking depressed, frequent crying, insomnia, weight loss or gain, all those types of things. So, if you're saying yes to any of those kinds of concerns or worries, you want to just ask them directly. And I think that's, again, a thing that makes us uncomfortable, but asking them if they've thought about suicide or self-harm is not going to be what triggers someone to actually go that route.
Yep, and I think that's the very thing that people are worried about. They think, oh gosh, if I ask them that, that's going to put it in their head, and
exactly.
That's going to move them further or closer to that decision.
Yep. So you just want to ask them very directly, and more than likely, if they are considering it, they're going to be relieved that somebody asked them because they're looking for some kind of support or they're needing something extra. So again, addressing, if that danger is imminent, and then knowing what kind of resources we have. And there's a few really easy ones. You can have someone or call with them, the 211, which is a 24-hour hotline in our town or in our whole state. And you can get any kind of resources from getting a number for a counselor or anything. I mean, any kind of resource. It can just be someone to talk to on the phone for that 10 minutes. And so that is a great resource that you can access anytime, night or day. And then also, if the danger is really imminent, we always want to dial 911. It's better than walking away and wondering or having something happen. Making sure you're staying with that person. If you do call 911 or 211, staying with them until someone else is with them, and then trying to follow up afterwards. And then I always say a good idea is the National Suicide Prevention Line. Keep it in your cell phone. You never know. We all have our cell phones with us pretty much all the time, right? So that number is 1-800-273-TALK. So it's 1-800-273-8255. Again, these are 24-hour crisis hotlines that you can access at any given time. So we just want to be aware of what's going on in others people's lives. Again, I think the biggest thing is to go with your gut. If you feel like something's wrong, ask some questions, get more information, and don't feel like you need to be the therapist. Just know that you're there to listen, gather those thoughts and what they're feeling and going through, and then making sure that they have some kind of resource that you're not walking away without leaving them without a resource. So,
and sometimes they just need a sounding board.
Exactly. Yep. And you might ask, and they say, no, you know what, I haven't thought about it, but, I appreciate that, I've been feeling down. I appreciate that you said something. And
that you're thinking about me.
Yes, yep, exactly. And maybe it just means you get another coffee date that week or something with a good friend.
And it can be, too, just, if you do catch them off guard, or it can be, just a simple ending the conversation with, can I touch back with you in a couple days or in a week, or depending on what your relationship is like. But, just opening the door to say, can I just check in on you again?
Yep. Yeah. So it's great to, and, especially like I said, in this kind of season, we want to be aware. There's the winter blues, but we don't want to write everything off as winter blues. We want to be aware of it. And
I think especially in this area, we also have the legislative blues going on.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. It's the reality. So on that happy note, you can always call our office for more resources, but we are going to take a quick break here, and we will be back soon.
Right now, 34.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
All right, we are back with Extension Connection. Again, I'm Liz Larson with the Parent Resource Center, and before the break, we were talking about kind of responding to distressed people in our lives and recognizing those signs of depression or just changes in mood. So I thought I'd add a little bit onto that about, how do you deal with it with kids? Obviously, it's a little bit different, and at least hopefully it's a little bit different. They're not having those same signs, but we have a good resource with Extension and kind of a whole booklet about helping kids kind of recognize what stress is, and even talking about, there's some pieces in here that talks about, why do we have stress, and taking it back historically, the fight or flight reflexes, and how our bodies still respond to that. And it's a good reminder for me sometimes too, is like, okay, stress is a natural reaction, and even though we're not fighting off saber-toothed tigers or something, that we still have those moments where our body says fight or flight, or that kind of thing. So
I always think about the great example of fight or flight is when you are laying in bed, you wake up, and then you think you hear something.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to be quiet to see if you can hear it again, and pretty soon your heart is just racing.
Pounding out of your chest, right?
And you're feeling flushed, and it's like all that happens, and it's like, if it was a saber-toothed tiger, your body's getting ready to run.
Yes, exactly. Thankfully, it was just the ice maker in the fridge, right?
Yeah, probably.
Hopefully. Yeah, but even that is helping kids recognize, like, this is kind of what your body does when you're stressed or feeling that fight or flight. And then recognizing that how can we help ourselves calm down as well. So the booklet kind of has some fun pages, and they have, I think it's a little dinosaur kind of guy.
Yeah,
is that what he is,
I would say he's a dinosaur. And I think it's probably most appropriate for elementary age kids.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point to point out. So, it kind of helps them recognize different signs. Maybe they get stomach aches or headaches. and talking through kind of what those signs look like for them. And then also talk some about stress being positive, and, there's positive stress and negative stress. Again, a good reminder for us as adults as well. But positive stress really does exist. It's the thing that motivates us.
It's what got you up and out of the bed in the morning.
Exactly. That alarm and, I have a meeting at 8 o'clock I got to get to, or whatever else. It helps you do well in things because you're kind of more alert and functioning at your best. So we want to have kids know that there can be positive stress too. And we think of that when kids are changing grades or, going to kindergarten. And those things can bring positive stress too.
Yeah, all those growing experiences that we come in contact with.
Exactly. So they have some different ways of identifying sources of stress, making new friends, or even big things, a death of a family member, or worrying about something going on in the household. And this can be a great tool that maybe they can go through themselves, and then parents can help them recognize, what they're affected by. And sometimes they're stressed about something that we don't even realize that they were aware of was going on.
Yeah, maybe at lunchtime, they weren't invited to sit down with a group of friends that they normally have lunch with.
And that might not be something that comes out in the regular, pick up after school of, how was your day? Fine. So
you mean it wouldn't come out there? Yeah, fine.
There's apparently
what'd you do?
Much.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, all day. There's nothing going on. Yep, exactly. And then we talk about reactions to stress, and again, an opportunity to talk with kids about what are healthy ways to deal with stress. Recognizing that some kids, even whether it's elementary school, middle school, they're being exposed to substance use, and those might feel like really great alternatives of dealing with stress, and especially if it's peer stress or social stress at any kind of way. So recognizing that, and so kind of some great resources and ways we can keep kids safe and aware of what's going on with themselves, and really teaching those life skills that we end up using, because we'll all have stress throughout our lives, so we got to learn to cope.
Right, and I think as kids get older, too, helping them recognize that sometimes stress in their lives are things that are brought on by themselves.
Yep.
When it comes to like it's homework or things that they know that they need to get done, and if they are procrastinating, you are going to have stress when everything comes to a head and you have to have everything done and you haven't planned ahead. So being able to have them think about, how can I plan this and kind
of prevent some of that stress from even happening.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So some good resources as we're thinking about stress and
it is really a fun booklet, and it is a cute little dinosaur.
And lots of good interactive pieces to it, so it's not just sit down and lecture your kids, right? We don't want to.
Yeah, it's something you can easily do. We talk about our family table. It could be something that could be a family table discussion, and something that everybody could have their own to look at the same time.
And maybe your kids will be enlightened of, that's why Dad does that when he's stressed, or Mom does this, or right? We recognize it in each other.
Yeah. Well, kind of to follow up with Liz's talk about stress, talking and bringing us back to heart health again. Of course, stress is a normal part of our lives, like we were just talking about, but excessive stress they have found to affect our heart health. And in many cases, it can lead to other health problems, such as high blood pressure, which of course leads to heart disease, asthma, ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome. And so all those kinds of things, even though more research is needed to determine how stress contributes to heart disease, we do know that there is definitely an effect. And some of those factors that are proven to increase heart disease, like high blood pressure and cholesterol levels, smoking, physical inactivity, and overeating, sometimes all those things can be related to stress.
Yeah.
When you talk about what kids might do to deal with their stress, adults have some of those same kinds of things that they turn to. And so it is really important to manage stress as a piece of your heart disease prevention. So a physiological response to stress is a faster heartbeat, that like we were talking about
the
with
pounding in the middle of the night.
The fight or flight kind of idea. And so the body also secretes hormones called cortisol, which increases our blood pressure and causes the body to retain fluid. And then in turn, that increased fluid places excessive stress on our heart. And so all those things can be going on. And if you have long-term stress, this is something that can then lead to obviously high blood pressure ongoing, an irregular heart rhythm, damage to your arteries because, and that's one of those reasons why high blood pressure is so important to be checked and regulated, is because it gives you that continual extra pressure is on all your arteries, and so damage will occur after a long period of time. And then also higher risk of developing atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of your arteries. So the American Heart Association says that there's a number of things you can do to manage stress, and some things are exercise.
Which is great for your heart, right?
Great for your heart, and a good way to kind of relieve some of that stress. Maintaining a positive attitude, and so it goes back to, again, if you're feeling distressed, if you're feeling blue, making sure that you are reaching out to somebody to help you with that. Not smoking, not drinking too much coffee, not drinking too much alcohol. All those things can be things that can add to your heart disease.
Yeah. Well, and again, like you had said, they all kind of wrap up, right? So it's like if you're not sleeping well because of stress, and then you're having to drink more coffee, and then the caffeine's in your system, and you're not sleeping well because of that. And
it's just a vicious cycle.
Yes, exactly. So you want to put some positive influences into those cycles.
Well, and many times it can be, you're because of all those things, like you said, you're losing sleep, which means you're not as productive, which means you have more pressure at work maybe to get things accomplished. And so, again it just adds to that whole vicious cycle. So, trying to incorporate some of those small steps that you can put into daily routines can really make a significant impact. And, taking some steps for heart health, they actually have found that you can turn around by 80% your chances of heart disease.
80%.
By making some health changes, some lifestyle changes within your daily routine. And so it is something that we do have some control over. I think many times we think, my grandparents or my parents have heart disease, and so therefore I'm kind of out of luck.
Why even try, kind of a feeling.
But the research is showing more and more that we really have more control than maybe we have been led to believe.
Yeah. Well, and how often do you get a percentage like 80%? You can turn around and impact that much of your own health. Yeah.
So so heredity does play a role, but we definitely have a lot of options also. And so we've been talking a lot about heart health. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, I am doing a program on February 27th, which will be next Monday. And it will be all about heart health at 10 a.m. And I'm being hosted by Edgewood here in Mandan. And so you're welcome to come and join us if you'd like to learn a little bit more about heart health and some tips that you can take home with you. One final thing I wanted to mention that's kind of related to heart health too is that we have a brand new publication that's a part of our Pinch and Pennies in the Kitchen series. And this is all about do-it-yourself spice mixes, which is a great way to not only save money, but it's also a great way to reduce sodium, because many of those packaged spice mixes that you might purchase have a lot of extra sodium added. And so there's in this publication there's a recipe for a Mexican seasoning blend and several other ones. And so if you were interested in that, check our website. And with that, we will have to close with Extension Connection.